Yeah,
that's
good
fantastic.
On you.
Congratulations, Bernard. That's we're inspiring a bunch of budding audio journalists.
I don't think we're inspired. I think Bernard doesn't take his inspiration. I think he marches to the beat of his own drum, shall we say?
I feel like we have an ever-growing sphere of influence.
I don't think we influence Bernard.
Do you not think so?
No, I
suspect not.
I think he's staunch in his ways, isn't he?
Possibly, yeah.
But it's good for him, and getting him more involved in doing stuff. And with how Bernard's situation is, it's good for him.
Of course it is. Congratulations, bravo.
RLBS at RL BetStats says, now then, lads, at the halfway point of the regular season, what would your dream team be so far? P.S. Please pass on apologies to Mark for the tips.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, no, it's betting, isn't it? If I'm stupid enough to put the bets on.
Well, I should have had an accumulator this weekend.
Yeah, you would have done okay.
I'd have done okay with 8 out of 8.
You had all the favourites, but we'll get to that later. Spoiler.
Yes. Anyone who listened last week would basically record me picking the favourites, and it wasn't a challenge, was it? Last week, really, it's just you stuck your neck out on witness, didn't you? That's the difference.
Right. To try and catch up, and
that's it.
You've got
to take.
To be fair, if Patrick Arvan hadn't got injured, I think they would have still had a
value for it. I think, to be honest, I mean this with the greatest respect because he wore the Bulls jersey for a couple of years, but if you're putting your hope in the relative fitness of Patrick Arvan, you might be.
But they were probably just about on top at that stage of the game. We'll get to the game.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so
let's do our dream team.
We love a fantasy dream team. Do you want to go first with your one, and then I'll go, or shall I go first? Mine's probably slightly more controversial.
Right, well, I was for my fullback, I was thinking between Hardacre and O'Brien.
Right.
I was thinking both have been equally as creative, 13 tries plus tries assists over the Super League season so far. Both contribute to winning teams. I mean, both have got 70+% winning percentage. And but I think the edge for me went to Hardacre because he does a bit more of the dirty work. He does more carries, more meters, more tackle busts. He basically gets involved a little bit more for his side, so that's why Hardacre gets my vote.
Okay, Hardacre didn't get my vote, but because I did write him down when I did my first draft, but then I realised I basically picked 1 to 7 was almost entirely Castleford, so I've kind of censored myself a little bit and gone to try and pick some more out there ones or lads that might not be necessarily at the very forefront of people's thinking, which is why I landed on Jamie Shaw, who I think has had, when he's been in the team at Hull FC, a very impactful season and has started to, particularly in the last few weeks, start to look really good for them.
I think he leads the way in tries and clean breaks for fullbacks this year, so he has offered a threat.
He's an attacking threat. Right, what about your wingers?
I think the easy option is just to say Eden and Minikin due to the try scoring exploits, to be honest. I'd have Minikin as my first choice. I think he's been better even though he's scored a few less tries. I think some of the tries he's scored have been a lot harder than some of the tries that Eden's scored, and he makes a lot less errors than most of the regular wingers in Super League, to be honest. He tends to do something positive anytime he touches the ball, and wingers kind of make a lot of errors, and he's not in that camp.
He is very consistent, isn't he?
Other names that I've got listed as deserving mentions are Liam Marshall, Ben Jones Bishop. There's a case for Tom Davies. He's the biggest meter maker of all the wingers. He makes plenty of meters and does a lot of tough work, and he's also very low on the error count, considering he's up at 20 carries a game, 160 metres a game, yet he's only made about 6 or 7 errors in the Super League so far. That's pretty special.
I nearly plumped for the young Wiganer as well.
To be honest, Joe Burgess was like leader in the clubhouse by a distance, in a way. I mean, with a hat-trick in the World Club Challenge and try a game even when he's played a bit at centres as well this year, but he just hasn't played as much and hasn't played on the wing consistently. So it's Minikin and Eden. Yeah,
I went back and forth on Mahe Fanua as well just to get in the side based on, because he's played at centre and at the wing, hasn't he? Throughout the season.
Mostly wing this year.
He's been more wing oriented, but not quite for me. So I went with Eden. I went with Eden and Minikin as well. Centres, I think we've gone slightly different on. I've gone with Carlos Tuimavave, which is perhaps not the most surprising pick in the world. I think he does very, very well at centre for Hull. But Chris Wellen over at Salford has had a real renaissance in his career since he came back, and he's been a big part of he's made a lot of metres for Salford, and he's had a big hand in some of their strong wins, and look at where they are in the table. So,
and he didn't start the season in the side, and then
he's come back in. He's done very. He's a solid, hard working. I've got a lot of time for Chris Wellen, and he's not playing. Well, I'd say he's playing above expectations, but he's doing very, very well for Salford, so fair play to the kid.
And Tuimavave is a good choice. He was in my sort of deserves a mention list alongside Braden Williami, who's scored quite a lot of tries actually for Catalan when you count it back. Per performance, he's certainly scored a lot. But my centres, just missing out is Jake Webster, but Mark Percival and Junior Sau, for me. If you look at them, they're up there in tries scored, but also I look more at breaks and assists from the centre position, like how much are they having an impact and setting things up for other players, and they're in the top 3 centres in both of those two. Plus, I just think they make more of a difference to their actual teams. I think Sal's we've talked about him being almost like the heartbeat of that Salford backline many a time, and then Percival has just been the most and at sometimes only classy player in that St Helens backline.
Yeah, so, he's stood out, hasn't he, for him? He's staying fit as well, which is good. Or staying fitter.
Yeah, and he's kicking goals reasonably okay too. So
there you go. What about halves? What have we gone for?
Right, well, standoff for me is don't need to have a conversation beyond George Williams.
No.
Kelly's been great. He's scored lots of tries himself. But look at the tries plus assist column, and Williams is a few ahead. Absolutely. If you add the two together. Ben Roberts, obviously, he's been good, but we could just do a cast team, couldn't we? And I actually think for Williams, he's got more responsibility on him in the Wigan side than the other guys have got in their relative sides, I feel. And for a younger player, he doesn't shirk any of that responsibility. He's got more offloads, more tackle busts than any of the other halves in the competition. He makes things happen even though he's the main man that defences are still targeting. So I just think that elevates him.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I nearly put young George Williams in, but I knew that you would do, so I've gone different. I've put Albert Kelly in place of him. For a lot of what you just said really about him, he's a sparkling runner of the ball and he bags a lot of tries, and I think he lends himself well to playing alongside my other half, who I've picked, which is Luke Gale. Very hard to look past Luke Gale.
No, and to be honest, his stats are good. They don't quite actually match the level of his performances, in my opinion, because I think he's linked so much other stuff in that, like Hardacre's ended up being the player with the assist, or Roberts maybe has got the space off the back of what Gale's done, or you know what I mean, or he's putting forwards into holes that are finding other forwards off the back of them. It's just doing so much.
I feel like his game has kicked on even from last year over the first half of this season, and you're absolutely right. His game management and the way he sees and reads the game now, he's like a chess grandmaster for me. He can read three or four plays ahead, and he's seeing what's going on, and he's putting the right ball in, and he makes almost always the right decision. Sometimes you could accuse him of sending the odd errant pass,
but usually when Castle are already 3 or 4 scores ahead,
exactly,
and he's been the architect of them getting to that, and he's scored a lot of tries himself, which is good. He's showing good support play too. The only other player that would get a real mention for me was Richie Myler, who's got a better try plus assist combo actually than Luke Gale, and I think he's playing in a much more dysfunctional side, but still really getting it done. And I don't expect him to be at Catalan next year. I think he's going to be someone who's interested in the likes of Huddersfield if they stop this ridiculous fascination with Newcastle Knights players. Although Mamo's worked out well, you can't just build your whole side
around the worst team in the NRL.
You would have thought, but maybe it'll work for him.
Who knows?
Or like a Widnes hometown return for him. Someone will be looking at him anyway, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so into the pack then, Mark.
Yeah, we'll start at prop, shall we?
Yes, go ahead. Well, mine.
You want to give yours? Yeah,
prop forwards. It's relatively simple. Cuthbertson and Walmsley. For me, I feel like Cuthbertson gets in on the strength of the relationship he's developing with the hooker at Leeds, who we're going to talk about in a little while. Sure. But we're seeing more of the 2015 Cuthbertson than we are of the 2016 Cuthbertson this year, which again gets him into the team for me. And Worms is just a meter machine, so that's what you want from your prop forward. He's a big, nasty meter eater. And he does it probably better than anyone else in the league at the minute for me. Two
good picks. I found it really hard to pick this category actually, because you've got people like Worms, like you talk about, massive meters, Ika Hifo, massive meters, and bowling people out of the way, left, right, and centre every run he makes. Cuthbertson. Taylor's been really consistent in all aspects of the game. Garbutt, if you're talking about players who make meters, he's right up there with Walmsley in that count. For Feta, how good has he been at Wakefield? And they've all got very good stats that back up their rights to be around the team. I'm going to go for Junior Moores and Chris Hill.
Great shouts.
For me, Junior Moores is just so dynamic and so fun to watch. He makes loads of meters, contributes tries and assists to his game, as well as being pretty competent defensively, to be honest. Better than people like Walmsley, for example. As well as not making many errors or giving away many penalties compared to some of the other leading contenders. And given how much he throws the ball around and stuff, you'd think his error count would be slightly higher. Hill, in turn, he's helped start to turn Warrington around a bit. And I think of that performance, match-winning performance against Leeds. He's third in metres per game out of all the props, and he's got the best tackle success of all the regular players in Super League so far this season, 99% success rate. And that's on 33 tackles a game. Yeah. So that's where he gets in for me on his overall consistency and effort.
That's it. So, who have you got at hooker?
Matt Parcell.
Yeah, me too. Not even a conversation, really, is it? He gets try assists, he runs the ball beautifully, and he's the top tackler.
He's new to the competition, but he's top in tries per game out of all hookers and third in try assists per game out of all hookers. I just think he's much more of a dynamic individual threat than, say, McShane, who's probably the one behind him.
Yeah.
Clark's missed a few games. He's probably the next one in contention.
Yeah, Roby's having a worse season as I can remember from
not played
by his standards.
Missed a lot of games,
not played as much as well. Yeah, so no, I think Matty Parcell he's the signing of the season so far for me. I think he's done fabulously well for these, particularly when you think that he came in under not a cloud, but he was a part of that whole James Seguiero thing, and I would say that they've not missed James Seguiero with Matt Parcell in the side.
No, it's not a factor, is it?
Not at all. Right, into the back row then. My second row, as I've gone for the two pretty indomitable runners of the ball. This is what I like to see in the second row. Mike McMeekin and Ben Murdoch-Masila. McMeekin has had a strong enough season to earn himself an England call-up and made his debut last month, and he's a very, very important part of what Castleford do when they run the ball in the early parts of sets. And Ben Murdoch-Masila is another one of these Salford players who's kind of kicked on quietly under the radar, but he's another one who's a devastating runner of the ball. He just brings a lot of impact and go forward. And when we were talking about Junior Sal in terms of this sort of heart and soul of the team, I feel like he's a big part of that pack in terms of its heart and its grit.
Scores big tries late in games as well, it always feels like, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's got, 8 or 9 tries so far this year?
Yeah.
He doesn't make my cut, though.
No, of course not. Who have you picked?
Well, McMeekin's all-round roller. You talked about how well he carries early in the set, but also then how creative he is with his offloads near the opposing line, as well as the lines he runs. He's a shoo-in. He's the first choice second rower this season so far.
Yeah.
I've looked at picking second rowers based on who's the best at what they do in that position.
Okay.
Because I think Murdoch-Masila is the second best at
Liam Farrell, moving on.
At what Mike McMeekin does.
Right.
Whereas Liam Farrell makes way more metres than any other second rower in the competition per game in terms of his work rate. Tackles very well. Consistently is missed when he's not playing, and is an important part of one of a very good attacking link play when he is playing.
A golden edge, you might call it.
I'm not allowed to say that anymore.
No,
Tom.
you aren't.
But yeah, so then the other people who get mentioned, Stanley Lefeo, who's been great, obviously, everyone at Casals. Zeb Taya has got some really great numbers. He's the only other player in the second row over 100 metres per game who plays who's played more than half the games. But he makes so many errors that I just couldn't include him in the cut.
Yeah, no, he's catastrophic. They were all pretty poor at the weekend, but he didn't look great last weekend either, did he, against Cass? Locking the scrum.
Yeah, I'll go first on this one. I don't think that any of the obvious loose forwards have stood out well enough this year. Cahill works really hard, high tackles per game, high metres per game. O'Loughlin creates things. He's got the best try assists record of all the loose forwards, for example. Westerman's been really consistent at Warrington, but I'm going to take a little liberty and put Cuthbertson in here. I think he's played enough at loose forward to make this side. The other player who gets talked about a lot at loose forward this year is Adam Milner, and I'm going to get shot at for this. I think he's having a little bit of an overrated season in terms of how good he's actually playing. The role he does, the sort of emotional charge of leading the defensive line is okay, but doesn't offer a lot going forward in terms of contributing there. I suppose he runs the odd line, dummy line and stuff that helps his teammates out, but he's got a really high amount of missed tackles, errors and penalties. We're talking in the top count of that. I think he's third or fourth in regular players this season. Certain players who play more than half the games. So he's making too many errors, and people keep banging on about him. So I just thought I'd make that point, actually, because I know a lot of people might want to put him in theirs. But Cuthbertson
for you. Well, I've gone with Big Joey Westerman.